from the NewsChannel 5 network, this is Sportsline.
Hey there, Sportsline on your television. Steve Layman here with you. Glad you are here with us on this Tuesday night on NewsChannel 5 Plus. Lots of stuff to get to tonight. So much going on. March Madness officially underway. At some point tonight on the show, I'm going to fill out my bracket as we go along here. Every single game of the NCAA tournament, I will fill out tonight on the show. Want you guys to call in, be a part of it, ask about certain matchups, ask about teams that you may be thinking about pushing along in your bracket, contribute what you did in your bracket, who you have in the Final Four, all of that stuff. Totally acceptable. We want to hear from you guys tonight on the program. The NCAA tournament itself underway already. And your first winner is the Radford Highlanders. In the first four tonight, the Highlanders beat Long Island University Brooklyn 71-61 in the first four in Dayton. So they are the first team to move on, and they will go to Pittsburgh to take on Villanova on Thursday. The second game tonight, battle of 11 seeds, St. Bonaventure and UCLA. Winner of that game gets Florida coming up on Thursday. So the NCAA tournament is already underway. We'll get to much more on that as we move along here tonight. The NIT tipping off tonight as well. Middle Tennessee at home against Vermont. Obviously, they are frustrated. They are not in the big dance. Rumors swirling about Kermit Davis potentially heading to Ole Miss at the end of the season. But tonight, a home game. Final home game for a valuable senior class, the winningest class in school history. Maybe the final home game for Kermit Davis as well in Murfreesboro. And right now, they're up at the half by 8 on Vermont. Can they close the deal? Can they move on? One thing they talked to us about the other day is, as disappointing as they were to not be into the NCAA tournament, this gives them a chance to do something else in March. Middle Tennessee's never been to Madison Square Garden for any game, let alone in the NIT. And the chance to make a run in March and get to the world's most famous arena in the NIT Final Four would be a really fun run. I know that's not what a lot of Mill fans want. That's certainly not what the players want, because they wanted to be in the NCAA tournament. But there is something to be said about winning a bunch of games in March and playing deeper on into the postseason. Obviously, an NCAA tournament win, what you saw the last couple of years, monumental for the university. There's no question about it. But, you know, certainly from a local standpoint and to a lesser degree on a national level, if you ask Belmont's best March run came when they got to an Elite Eight in the NIT a few years back. And that was a team that was frustrated because they won the regular season in the OVC, lost in the tournament, thought they should have been in the NCAA tournament, ended up in the NIT. But you know what? They took advantage of the opportunity, and they went and won a couple games and nearly got all the way to New York. That's the challenge for Middle Tennessee now, is to channel that anger and try to prove people wrong by going out and winning games now here in the NIT. The other big story tonight, actually there's a couple of them, the Predators with a massive home game tonight against the Winnipeg Jets. These are the top two teams in the Central Division, if not the entire Western Conference. Duking it out here. This is almost certainly a second-round playoff series preview. The Preds fighting for their first ever Central Division title. Home ice throughout the entire Western Conference. And potentially the President's Trophy as the best record in the entire NHL, which would give you home ice throughout the entire playoffs, even into the Stanley Cup final. All that is still on the table with 14 games left to go in the regular season. And remember, we were just over there doing live shots before the game tonight. Look up into the rafters. Next time you're in Bridgestone Arena, you will see one banner for the Western Conference Championship that they won last year. This team has never won a Central Division title before, and it's never done anything else like another conference championship or a Stanley Cup final, obviously, or Stanley Cup championship, obviously. All those are in front of them right here, and they look like a team that is hungry for it. They're playing for it. You've got a weary Jets team coming into tonight, and think of the old video game Mortal Kombat where you get the guy down and it says finish him off at the end. That's what the Preds are looking to do tonight against the Jets. They have a 6-point advantage with a game in hand on the Jets at this late juncture of the season. The Jets have been on the road for basically 2 weeks. They lost last night in overtime in Washington. They've got a few guys out of the lineup tonight. This is a road-weary and beaten-up team coming in here. The Preds are healthy. They've got all this depth, playing great. This is an opportunity to jump on them and finish them off for all intents and purposes. You could go up by 8 with a regulation win tonight, still with a game in hand and just 13 games left in the regular season. And boy, have the Preds jumped on them. First period tonight, 3 minutes into the game, Roman Josi to Kevin Fiala. That made it 1-0. It was a blitzkrieg out of the gate. 15-1 shots. It was still only 1-0. Then the Jets went out on the power play, and the Preds scored 2 goals. That's how dominant the first 10 minutes were. Preds led it 3-0 after 9 minutes. It is still 3-0 at the end of the first period. Austin Watson, who all he seems to do now is score shorthanded goals, got another one. Then Victor Arvidsson got a shorthanded goal as well. It is 3-0 Preds after 1, so potentially a massive night for the Nashville Predators at Bridgestone Arena. And then the other big story of the day, NFL free agency doesn't officially begin until tomorrow at 3. But we're well into the official tampering period in the NFL, the only place where tampering is a good thing. A couple days out from free agency, and we're starting to hear some of the deals that have been agreed upon. Drew Brees going back to New Orleans. Kirk Cousins signing with Minnesota, $84 million over 3 years, fully guaranteed. Sam Bradford leaving Minnesota to go to Arizona. Teddy Bridgewater leaving Minnesota to go to the Jets. Some of these deals are starting to trickle out. And while the Titans were very quiet, this evening they made some noise because the agent for Malcolm Butler says they have reached a deal for the former Patriots cornerback to sign with the Titans for 5 years and $61 million, more than $30 million guaranteed. Now, this is interesting because Butler was benched for the Super Bowl in New England. There was a lot made of his departure from that team in the biggest game of the season and then in the offseason. But this has been a guy who won them a Super Bowl before and, frankly, has been a really good cornerback in the National Football League for the last couple of years. If he comes in and plays at the level he has played over the last few years, now all of a sudden you have Logan Ryan, you have Malcolm Butler, and Adoree Jackson, your first-round pick last year. That's a pretty good top 3 in your secondary if you're the Tennessee Titans. So a big move for the Titans out of the gates. They're also trying to re-sign some of their own guys. Offers have been made to linebacker Avery Williamson, defensive tackle Daquan Jones, couple of offensive linemen, and Josh Klein. And then Quentin Spain, the left guard, who's a restricted free agency. So all you have to do there is put in a tender on him, which gives you a right of refusal or to offer any deal he gets from someplace else. So John Robinson is busy. This stuff becomes official tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock. So a big, big night in the world of sports. NFL free agency, the Preds looking for a marquee late season, regular season win. The NCAA tournament is tipped off. The NIT has tipped off. And here on the show tonight, I fill out my NCAA tournament bracket. Our phone lines are open. 737-7767 is the number. We would love to hear from you guys tonight. Just call up, be a part of the show. First up tonight is John. John, thanks for the call. You'll lead us off here on Sportsline.
Well, hey, Steve, what's up?
How you doing?
Good. I was going to talk about the Tennessee Patriots. Oh.
Fire away. I see what you did there.
I mean, we're getting all these people from the Patriots, And do you remember last year they said the Titans got to find their own identity? Right.
Right.
And now we got Vrabel and Ryan, now Butler, and
John Robinson started it all too.
Oh yeah. I mean, the Titans need to find their own identity, not a copycat.
But here's the thing: is if you're going to copycat someone, isn't the team you want to do the team that's won 2 Super Bowls in the last 4 years and lost in another Super Bowl?
Well, true that. But I mean, I'm so frustrated with how they're. Let's do it in the draft.
Well, I mean, I think John Robinson has sort of made it a point to draft as well as he can and stockpile picks and build this team through the draft. A lot of the young nucleus of this team are draft picks. But I think he also views some certain guys that fit exactly what he wants to do here. The biggest thing for him is he wants team-first guys who are going to work hard and bring something to that locker room and to the field. And yeah, the Patriots way fits in with that in his mind. And so he's gone to that well a couple times here, but you know, it's far from a Patriots locker room at this point. You have a guy who once played there and Mike Vrabel is the head coach, sure. But other than that, I mean, it's Logan Ryan and Malcolm Butler. So maybe the secondary room is like New England here. But every place else on this team, you don't really have that much of an influence there. So I'm not ready to say that this is Patriots light, so to speak, here. But we'll see. We'll see how it pans out. I mean, my big thing about it is they needed to upgrade the secondary. And it's a hefty price to play for Malcolm Butler. But there's no question now. You feel pretty good about the top 3 guys in your secondary with the addition of Butler to go along with Ryan and Adoree Jackson.
But, yeah, hey, Steve, on the Super Bowl thing, I think Belichick said there's a reason we put the best guys on the field.
Yeah, he did say that, and thank you very much for the call, John. It was disputed by a lot of people after that whether that was the absolute truth or whether that was a coach just not wanting to talk about what actually happened. Because several guys on the defense, teammates of Malcolm Butler, came out in support of him after that game and sort of wondered where he was and why he wasn't a part of the biggest game of the year. So it's not abundantly clear how that went down. And here's the thing. I said it from the start when people said, hey, would you have any interest if you're the Titans in Malcolm Butler? I said, well, look, if anything went down that was not above board when it comes to Malcolm Butler or a red flag, I'll tell you who's going to know. It's John Robinson, because of his connections to that organization and the people he knows there and the people he worked with there. If anybody's going to have the full scoop on Butler and what went on during Super Bowl week and why he played one play on special teams in the most important game of the year, if anybody's going to know that, it's John Robinson. And the fact that he was willing to give him this money today and this length of a contract tells me whatever it was not a big deal viewed by John Robinson. It's water under the bridge, and he believes he's getting the player that has been a really good cornerback for the last several years up there in New England. Back to the phones we go. Let's say hello to Jeff. Jeff, good evening.
Hey, how you doing, Steve?
Doing great. Thanks for the call.
I have a few comments. Number one, shame on Mr. Low Class for his stupid comment last night. And that being said, I'm a Vols for life. I think Kentucky has got a superb young team. Another thing, I think Virginia is going to win it all this year. I've been looking at them, and they've been so close last few years. I think it's going to be the Cavaliers and the Musketeers. One more thing, I appreciate your insight on that about MTSU getting knocked off the bubble last night. You have a good evening, sir.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate the call. Good stuff there. Virginia and Xavier, couple of the 1 seeds. You got the 1 and the 4 seed overall getting to the Final Four at least. So that's interesting. This is a year where a lot of people think it's wide open. I'm among them. I think all the 1 seeds certainly have a chance to get to the Final Four, chance to cut down the nets, but it's not limited to them. Some years you look at the 1 seeds and at least on paper you think, gosh, the 1 seeds are kind of in a class by themselves. And then we find out that the NCAA tournament, the reason why it's the most exciting tournament on the planet is because it's one and done all throughout, and you get upsets. And the best teams don't always advance, and it's a lot of fun because of that. But this is one of those years where I stare at the bracket at the beginning, and I think, gosh, there's some 2 seeds here that can make a big run. There's some 3 seeds here that can make a deep run. There's a 4 seed in particular, in my mind, that can make a really deep run. There's a 5 seed that I think can make a really deep run this year. And then there's some lower seeded teams that I think are capable of making it to the second weekend, causing some real damage in brackets. And I think what's funny is if you look at the spreads, the point spreads on the games right now, there's only one lower seeded team favored in any of the first round games, and that's Butler in a 10-over-7 game. And actually Butler, if you look at the true seed list from the NCAA tournament committee, was actually more like a 9 seed. They had to be shipped down because of conference affiliation. Because you have Xavier and Villanova on that top line, there weren't enough brackets for the Big East teams in the 8-9 line, and so they had to be actually pushed down to a 10 seed so that you would avoid a rematch within the conference in the second round. And so really, that's barely an upset at all because it should be an 8-9 game. Instead, you know, it's a 7-10 type of thing. So a lot of the higher seeded teams are favored. I think that means the selection committee did a good job when it came to seeding for the most part. But I think what you're going to see is a lot of competitive games, a lot of low spreads and really competitive games, and don't be surprised if anybody wins. Don't be surprised if a 13 beats a 4. Don't be surprised when you see another 12 over a 5 or 11 over 6, anything like that. And then even more than that, more than the first round, don't be surprised when you get to Saturday and Sunday that you see some of the top seeds come down because the 7s and the 8s or the 6s are really good teams or good teams in a parity-filled year. Sweet 16, Elite 8. Don't be surprised if some of those teams make some noise at that point of the bracket. All right, we will come back, and when we do, I will fill out my bracket. We'll get to that. On the other side here, call us up, 737-7767. If you have questions on individual games, sleeper picks, you want to run by some of your picks for me, give me your Final Four, whatever you want to do, our phone line is open, 737-7767. Let's go through the brackets together tonight. I will do mine live on TV. See, it's totally blank right now. It will be filled out by the time this show ends. So we will get to that when we continue on here. This is Sportsline on News Channel 5+.